Hello, everyone. This is Jeffrey Kerr back here with Alex Meyer, and we're back here continuing our predictions for this year's Emmy winners. We've already covered comedy series and drama series. Now we're about to get to the movie/limited series races. Of course, in some of these categories, there's also a variety special in contention, which we'll be getting to. But in any case, we're starting off with the category of Outstanding Limited Series. And so the nominees are The Alienist, The Assassination of Gianni Versace, American Crime Story, Genius Picasso, Godless, and Patrick Melrose. So, okay, now while the assassination of Gianni Versace wasn't as acclaimed as The People versus O.J. Simpson 2 years ago, it was still such a well-regarded installment of American Crime Story. Not to mention that Gianni Versace did do well at the Creative Arts ceremony last weekend, taking home a total of 4 awards, including casting. So, yeah, I think that's definitely out front.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty, maybe not like a complete lock, but I'd say a pretty solid lock at this point. But I do think maybe there's a potential for Godless to upset, which I have in second place, and then I have Patrick Melrose in third. Where's Genius Picasso in fourth, and then The Alienist in fifth.
Yeah, I have those exact same rankings. Yeah, I mean, Godless is probably the most cinematic out of all the nominees, and it did do pretty well nominations. Though at the Creative Arts, it only managed to win 1 award for Outstanding Main Title Theme Music. So, I mean, whether or not that's an indicator of how it'll do on Monday nights, well, that remains to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and Patrick Melrose did overperform in nominations. I mean, a lot of us expected Benedict Cumberbatch to get into his category, which we'll be getting to shortly. But no, none of us expected it to get into limited series, nor writing, nor directing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the Alienist, no one really expected that to get in at all because it premiered so early on in the year.
Well, yeah, not to mention, this is the only above-the-line nomination it received.
Mm-hmm, yeah, because it had no acting nominations, no writing, no directing. A few, like, I know it did win, like, a supporting visual effects award at the Creative Arts, but not really anything else.
Yes, and Genius Picasso, despite the mixed critical reception it received, it still got in here, which is surprising, and it at least improved from the first season of Genius last year, which won nothing at all. And last weekend, Picasso did take home a few below the line awards.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah, so I guess now moving on to Outstanding Lead Actor in a Limited Series TV Movie. The nominees are...
Wait, did you say lead actor or actress? Because you cut out there on my end.
Oh, lead actor.
Okay. All right, and this is where I have one of my 2 super bets.
All
right, so the nominees here are Antonio Banderas, Genius Picasso, Darren Criss, The Assassination of Gianni Versace, American Crime Story, Benedict Cumberbatch, Patrick Melrose, Jeff Daniels, The Looming Tower, John Legend, Jesus Christ Superstar Live in Concert, and Jesse Plemons, Black Mirror, USS Callister.
Now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I think based on its haul at the Creative Arts Awards and just the general acclaim he's getting for this performance and just how transformative this is of a role for him, I think Darren Criss is probably quite a pretty solid lock at this point. And although, of course, given Benedict Cumberbatch's history of pulling an upset in this category 4 years ago for Sherlock, his last vow over frontrunners Billy Bob Thornton for Fargo and Mark Ruffalo for The Normal Heart, I do think Benedict Cumberbatch has a chance to upset here, which is why I have him in second place. But I just think that given the fact that the whole point of the assassination of Gianni Versace is to focus on Darren Criss's character, even though his character's name is not in the title.
Yeah, Andrew Cunanan.
Yeah, but I mean, he is the one who assassinated Gianni Versace, so in that sense, it makes sense. But I mean, I think he has a solid edge, and if he should win, he'd be the second youngest actor to ever win, because the youngest is Anthony Murphy, who won in his first and only acting performance at the age of 17 in 1973.
Yes, and yeah, I agree. With Gianni Versace up front to win limited series, it would be a real shocker if Darren Criss loses here for his phenomenal performance as Andrew Kinnanen. I mean, the only two obstacles I could see him facing are the slap the stud syndrome and the fact that his character is no winking devil. We often see at the Oscars how they don't like to award 20-something-year-olds nor pretty boys who don't undergo major transformations in the Best Actor category. And well, although, well, Darren Criss is in his early 30s, I believe, by now, and the fact that last year Riz Ahmed won this award for the night of, and he didn't suffer the whole slap the stud syndrome. And as for winking devils, well, as we see at the Oscars, they usually like to award villains with more of a rooting factor. But then again, in supporting actor last year, Alexander Skarsgård won for Big Little Lies, and his character was no winking devil. So I'd say it's looking good for Darren Criss.
Mm-hmm. And then after Benedict Cumberbatch, in third place I have Antonio Banderas, fourth place John Legend, fifth place Jesse Plemons, and sixth place Jeff Daniels.
Oh, interesting. Now, I do agree that with you on Antonio Banderas being in third. I mean, he does undergo major transformation as a real life person throughout entire season, and if the again Genus Picasso wasn't. I mean, got mixed reviews, so it wasn't as well received as the first season. I mean, plus under this new voting system, we see nominees on paper look like they should be winning, like it's performances that would win them the Oscar, like Bryan Cranston as LBJ or Robert De Niro as Bernie Madoff. Under this new voting system, they lose to the they used to much the actors who performances, at least actors giving powerhouse performances, despite the actors themselves not being as well established, like Courtney B. Vance as Johnny Cochran or Riz Ahmed in The Night of. And fourth place.
Courtney B. Vance was kind of more of a veteran, so to speak.
Yes.
He'd been a veteran. He'd been a film and TV veteran. He'd been a long-time character actor, I guess.
Well, yes, but he wasn't as well established as Bryan Cranston nor his wife Angela Bassett.
Right, but he was kind of like, I guess he was kind of like Richard Jenkins. I guess that's what I'd compare him to.
Oh, yeah, that's a very appropriate comparison. And as for the rest of my rankings, I actually have Jesse Plemons in fourth place. I guess just given that he's an actor who's been recognized before for his work on Breaking Bad and Fargo, and
I don't think he was nominated for Breaking Bad.
Oh well, if he wasn't, at least Emmy voters at least were exposed to his work on that show.
Mm-hmm. I just have John Legend higher just because Jesus Christ Superstar way overperformed in the nominations. I mean, I didn't even think he'd be nominated in this category at all. So, because I didn't, I figured maybe Brandon Victor Dixon would get an acting nomination and that would be it. But no, we got 3 acting nominations in all, and plus the fact that John Legend just completed his EGOT along with Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice at the
and Legend is Awards. And Legend is the very first African American to have ever completed their EGOT.
African American man.
Well, yes,
because you do have Whoopi Goldberg as
well. Well, yes, of course.
Just want to make that clarification because it's not like he's the very first African American EGOT person.
Well, yes.
So yes, so I do think just the acclaim of Jesus Christ Superstar and its pretty big win at the Creative Arts Emmys, including all the technical categories it won, I think it gives him a greater edge here. I mean, if like say The Looming Tower had gotten a lot more nominations for, like, if it had gotten a nomination for limited series as well as more like it got a directing nomination but not a writing nomination and maybe more acting nominations, then I might have put Jeff Daniels up higher. But because he has a greater potential to win another category, which we'll get to, and the fact that The Looming Tower underperformed across the board, I think that lessens his chance here by a huge amount. And Jesse Plemons, I have him ranked slightly higher than Jeff Daniels because of Black Mirror's TV movie win at the Creative Arts Emmys, and yeah.
Well, yes, and Yeah, so I have Clemens fourth, John Legend fifth, and Jeff Daniels sixth. And so now on to lead actress in the limited series TV movie, and the nominees are Jessica Biel, The Sinner; Laura Dern, The Tale; Michelle Dockery, Godless; Edie Falco, Law and Order: The Menendez Murders; Regina King, 7 Seconds; and Sarah Paulson, American Horror Story Cult.
And this was one of the most surprising categories nomination time because I only got 3 out of my predictions correct. I didn't
Yeah.
forecast Regina King, Sarah Paulson, or Edie Falco at all.
I don't think I did either. I mean, I
And and in,
know. Well, I
and
know
in
we both probably had. We probably predicted Haley Atwell would get in for Howard's End.
mhm, I can't forget. I think I also I don't remember who else I
I
predicted.
believe you also predicted Kristen Milioti for Black
Yeah,
Mirror.
yes, I did. I assumed if anyone would get a nomination for Black Mirror, it would be her because I didn't. But yeah, I didn't think Edie Falco would get in just because of Law and Order, True Crime, The Menendez Murders, meh critical reception. But so I think this is more of a name check nomination.
Hmm.
Well, then again, they did say she was the best thing about it. But given the fact that she got nominated and nothing else did, you know, and
Well,
then
I'll say right away, she's in my sixth place ranking.
yeah, same here. I mean, my rankings. Oof, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how you and I create our rankings here. I do think, despite the fact that The Tale vastly underperformed in nominations, I do think Laura Dern is going to win because, we're in again. This is the Me Too movement going on here. She plays a woman who is still dealing with the effects of being sexually abused as a child, and this is based on the director Jennifer Fox's own true life story of being sexually abused. So basically, Laura Dern is a fictional version of her.
Hmm.
And I think, and we've seen in the past victims of sexual abuse win awards. Like for instance, the Oscars, we saw Brie Larson win Best Actress for Room for playing a woman who was sexually abused by a man for years and who fathered her child. And Tim Robbins won Best Supporting Actor for Mystic River, playing a man who is still haunted from being molested as a child.
Indeed. Yeah, I can say that going into Emmy season, it did look like Laura Dern had a great shot of winning a second trophy for her performance as a Me Too survivor in The Tale after having prevailed last year for a supporting role in Big Little Lies. However, I do think she's vulnerable for several reasons. The Tale underperformed in nominations, only receiving 2 overall. It was also recognized in TV movie, which lost to Black Mirror. And also, it's been 5 years since Michael Douglas won for The Candelabra, which was the last time that a TV movie won an acting prize at the Emmys. And and not to mention, in fact, I was on Twitter earlier today, and there did seem to be reminded. Well, it was a tweet Kevin Jacobson, I believe well, okay. I'll say right away, I have Michelle Dockery winning for Godless.
I have her in second place, with based on Daniel Montgomery's article from a few weeks ago, because I do think that given that Godless is kind of a feminist take on a Western, and the fact that she's never won for Downton Abbey, I think could certainly help her here. But I
Well,
and if we weren't going through the Me Too movement, I might be tempted to put her in first. But I think that with Me Too going on, that gives Laura Dern the slight edge. But I do think Michelle Dockery has the best chance of an upset just because Godless is the most nominated of all the contenders here. And then was I chose to put Regina King in third because she does have a history of not one but two upset wins for when American Crime, because
yeah, no,
both times there she prevailed over two people who we thought were absolute locks. First she prevailed over Sarah Paulson for American Horror Story Freak Show, and then she prevailed over Jean Smart for Fargo, and
and
both
not to mention, Regina King is already garnering Oscar buzz for her performance in If Beale Street Could Talk.
true. And I think mainly because of that, they'll feel, well, she's probably going to be more focused on campaigning for that than for this because 7 Seconds got no other nominations
Yeah.
besides her. And they may feel, well, she's already won twice. She doesn't need another one right now. And and I put Jessica Biel in fourth. I'm sure a lot of people might put her in second because of all the strong buzz she received, and many people thought she could win. Many people did think she might possibly win at the Golden Globes earlier this year.
I was one of those people.
Right, but I just didn't think anything could overtake Nicole Kidman in Big Little Lies, and I was right there. But I
Yeah, though Amanda Spears has said in a previous Suckfest, like, if you look up the definition of a Golden Globe winner, Jessica Biel is the definition of one, and of course that didn't happen.
Well, I just think in her case here, I think the fact that The Sinner, her season of The Sinner, because it's like going to be one of those anthology miniseries, premiered well over a year ago. And while she did obviously receive a lot of critical acclaim for it, she hasn't exactly had the most prestigious career because she's had a history of being in movies that were considered critical and box office flops. And while her big break was originally in TV and the TV show Seventh Heaven, that show has always had a reputation of being just like a cutesy, family friendly drama that mainly is meant to appeal to like, groups who won't let their kids watch other TV shows because they're too violent or too sexual or too anything or whatever,
Mhm.
because
Yes.
it was a show about a Christian minister and his family.
hmm And I was about to say that, okay, Kevin Jacobson tweeted an article he wrote on a pattern, well, how Michelle Dockery could win based on recent pattern at the Emmys. And I replied to him saying, I'm predicting Dockery to win. And Andrew Carden replied, ditto. And then Kevin Jacobson tweeted, I wonder if during the tale is a Cicely Tyson The Trip to Bountiful situation, a TV movie that only gets 2 nominations and she's predicted to win at Best Actress, but ultimately loses to the person in the series they love more, which was Jessica Lange in American Horror Story Coven. Could you see that happening again this year?
Possibly, but I think in the Cicely Tyson, Jessica Lange case, I think maybe they maybe felt if they were awarding Cicely Tyson, it would be for giving her it to her for a performance that already received prestige in another award show 30 years earlier, because Trip to Bountiful was just a remake of the theatrical film from the 1980s, which finally won Geraldine Page an Oscar after being nominated after 8 nominations. And so,
Well, yeah, and of course we should say it was with Cicely Tyson's version, it was one of those examples where the Tony winner failed to prevail at the Emmys, like Bryan Cranston, Audra McDonald twice. Well, I know it wasn't the case for Jeffrey Wright's in Angels America, nor Robert's Morrison True.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, I mean, this could be an interesting a race here, but I don't know. I mean, I don't think most Emmy voters look at statistics when they vote. I think they just vote for who they think is the best performance. And we've seen, throughout the Emmys, Tonys, Oscars, we've seen people who are in under nominated programs still win in the end, despite their program not being the front runner for various things. So
Well,
I think sometimes it is the role itself that determines what will actually win. And I think, as I said before, there's always a debate, should current events impact what wins and what doesn't? And to a certain extent, yeah, no, it shouldn't. But sometimes, in a way, it can and should. And I do think with the Me Too movement going on and with so many women and men coming forward about being victims of sexual abuse, either in Hollywood or out of Hollywood, I can definitely see how many people, especially those who may have been abused themselves, and whether they've come forward or not, I can absolutely see how they would empathize the most with Laura Dern's character, and maybe as a way of dealing with their own trauma, they may feel her winning would be an overcoming of their abuse, I guess. So I just feel like they'll take into account their own experiences and give her her the win for it because of that.
well, and I'd like to point out, though, we
I
did not
mean,
see the Me Too movement have a factor at SEG, where The Handmaid's Tale lost not only Elizabeth Moss, but also Ensemble. They both went to well, because Moss obviously lost Claire Foy for The Crown, and The Handmaid's Tale lost Ensemble in a drama series to This Is Us. So the Me Too movement did not have a factor there, nor did it have well, as much of a factor as we thought it would on the Oscars, where a lot of us were predicting Three Billboards to win Picture, but didn't.
Well, yeah, but Three Billboards also had the controversy of whether or not Sam Rockwell's character gets too much of a pass for his racist behavior, and I think that was more of a factor in why it lost.
Well, yeah, although it obviously didn't stop Rockwell from winning his category.
Yeah, well, but I mean, but I mean, I guess, I mean, we'll see what happens, but I just feel that I could also see possibly a case where if voters wanted to see the tail get nominated across the board for everything, and the fact that it's not, I could see them throwing their support towards her for this
Yeah,
as a result.
although Ellen Burstyn did not receive a nomination supporting actress, and she's a
Right.
legend, and they could have nominated her.
That's why I just said if they're disappointed for the fact that it didn't get as many nominations as they wanted it to, they'll be more tempted to vote for Laura Dern as a result.
Well, yes, but again, the acting categories, both nominations and wins, are voted on by the actors branch, and but then again, if the actors branch only didn't really show love for it in other categories, don't you think that could potentially hurt Laura Dern?
I mean, it's certainly possible. I'm not saying she's a lock by any means. That's why I didn't put a super bet on her.
Yeah, though I will say, even though this is not a done deal, I am placing a super bet on Michelle Dockery because I'm just making that's just how bold I am in this prediction.
I mean, because I have a strong feeling that maybe people like Ellen Burstyn and Jason Ritter, maybe they did receive like a lot of nominations, but maybe like third or fourth place votes instead of first place votes, because it's the first place vote that always gets the most attention. And then once they've determined who's gotten the first place votes, then they go and eliminate the ones with the least amount of votes and move like the number 2 and number 3 into the bigger piles of who already has more first place votes. And they keep doing that until they hit like the magical threshold number of this minimum number of votes to get the nomination. So
Okay.
that's what I think may have happened here. So I mean, we'll see what happens, but yeah.
Okay, so I guess now on to your bottom two rankings. I don't believe we got to those yet.
Yes, so I have Sarah Paulson in fifth because American Horror Story Cult did get another acting nomination, and so obviously the the TV Academy loves her for pretty much anything she does. She's kind of the Meryl Streep for the of the Emmys by now, it seems.
Well, yeah.
Um, and then Edie Falco in six simply because she's the show's only nomination, and I think she's more of a name check than like you know than like an absolute contender, I guess. Kind of like say when Estelle Parsons got nominated for a Tony for The Velocity of Autumn, despite it getting trashed by
Oh,
critics in closing after only like 16 performances.
oh,
You know,
yes, and I guess you can kind of say the same thing with I guess Denzel Washington and Roman J. Israel Esquire at the Oscars.
well, to be fair, he did have a SAG nomination for that, and I personally think that film is very underrated. His performance is good, and while I maybe wouldn't have nominated him over, say, Tom Hanks for The Post, it wasn't like this wasn't a nomination that made me like furious, like say Bradley Cooper in American Hustle.
well, okay, I guess there's just other examples I can't really think of off the top of my head right now, but yeah, I agree with the bottom four rankings. So I guess now on to in fact, another case I could see helping Michelle Dockery is not only having not won for Downton Abbey, but she's nominated this time for playing a completely different character in Godless. So I could see the acting branch being impressed by the range she's displayed. So I guess now on to Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Limited Series Movie. The nominees are.
All right. So the nominees are Jeff Daniels, Godless, Brandon Victor Dixon, Jesus Christ Superstar Live in Concert, John Leguizamo, Waco, Ricky Martin, The Assassination of Gianni Versace, American Crime Story, Edgar Ramirez, The Assassination of Gianni Versace, American Crime Story, Michael Stuhlbarg, The Looming Tower, and Finn Whitrock, The Assassination of Gianni Versace, American Crime Story.
Okay, so before we get into our predictions for this category, since there are three men from Gianni Versace nominated, I guess who would be your personal choice of those three to win, and who do you think would be most likely to prevail?
Probably for both Finn Whitrock,
Oh, yeah,
but I don't have any of the Versace men winning.
well, neither do I. And I was about to say,
If
yeah, in Wet
if
Rock, I'm sorry.
Although if Cody Fern had been nominated, I do think he might be the front runner.
Hmm. Yeah, and I was about to say, yeah, if I was an Emmy voter who had to choose between the three men from Versace, I'd vote Finn Rock. I mean, man, his performance was so, I mean, devastating.
Because
Yeah, he was
because
playing a character who's so suicidal.
right, but I mean, like, I guess because it kind of reminded me of the situation with People versus O.J. Simpson 2 years ago when you had Sterling K. Brown, David Schwimmer, and John Travolta all nominated here. But I think with Sterling K. Brown, what helped him prevail was that his character more or less got to be a co-lead with Sarah Paulson, with his portrayal of Christopher Darden, because I mean, certainly David Schwimmer and John Travolta got their share of time as Robert Kardashian and Robert Shapiro, but it certainly the show certainly put more of an emphasis on Brown's performance as Darden because of how, of him having to be the co-prosecutor in the case and how that affects his relationship not only with his colleagues but also his fellow African Americans as well, and the complexity of that situation. And I think with Cody Fern getting the lion's share of praise and how his character was kind of received a lot of attention out of all the supporting cast, I think he would have had the better chance of winning had he been one of the nominees as a result.
Hmm. Yeah, so I guess now that we've got that out of the way, who do you have winning?
I think this will be Godless's big win, so I have Jeff Daniels out in front because again, with him being a double nominee here and as well as for Looming Tower and lead actor, that certainly helps his visibility a lot. And plus, even though we have a new Emmy voting system, they still prove they love their movie stars from time to time. And and of course Jeff Daniels does have a previous Emmy for The Newsroom, and nobody saw him winning that, given
Yeah,
that
that was a huge surprise. I mean, he's even talked about how his wife checked his odds on Gold Derby, and even she did not think he was going to win.
right. And I remember he joked the only award he'd ever won was the AARP award for The Squid and the Whale. Yeah, so I mean, Jeff Daniels, he's a longtime veteran character actor who, like, anytime he's in a movie or TV show, he almost always gives a good performance. He's very solid and reliable, and he's very versatile. He can play the hero, he can play the villain, he can pretty much do anything.
Uh-huh.
And
Yes.
he's received a lot of praise for his portrayal as the villain of Godless. And of course, you need with a western, you need a great villain because that's what the big focus is.
Well, yeah, not to mention he plays a man with one arm.
Mm,
The-
but I don't know if any, but I do have as a possible upset, and I don't know if anyone has him ranked this high, but I do have Brandon Victor Dixon in second
well,
place.
I'm actually predicting him to win.
I I mean, there's a potential he could win, but I also feel there could be somewhat of a backlash, not due to his performance, just but basically that this was more or less a concert rather than like a full-on movie.
It's
And
a
so people
variety special.
and so some Emmy voters might feel, well, that's not really acting per se, you're just singing, you know.
It's a rock. Jesus Christ Superstar is a rock opera. The way they did it, they didn't necessarily do it as a stage as a concert. They did like a theatrical staging concert, and not to mention Dixon. He was the breakout star of that television event with such a juicy role as Judas Iscariot, where he literally brought the house down near the end of the night with his rendition of Superstar. And plus, I mean, again, I guess bring up a point we just talked about. He's kind of a co-lead of the show.
Right, so maybe some voters may feel he's in the wrong category and maybe he should have been nominated as lead instead.
Well, I mean, I can understand why they did it because, but then again, we've seen sometimes co-leads nominating supporting helping people, like say at the Oscars, Jennifer Connelly winning supporting for A Beautiful Mind, or Alicia Vikander winning supporting for The Danish Girl, and that kind of
Mm,
stuff.
yeah, but I mean, I don't know, like I just feel that with these live musicals, they'd much rather give them wins for the technical and craft categories rather than acting, because these, I mean, they're very tricky to pull off, and I'm sure his praise is well deserved, but like I said, with some maybe more traditional minded voters, I can see them going, well, that was a nice performance, but this wasn't really a movie per se, or a
Well,
series, so I don't really see how it would be fair to vote for him and not vote for someone who is in a series or a movie. So I think that's his one potential back. I'm sure he'll get a lot of votes. I think it's going to be a close race no matter who wins here, but I just think that Jeff Daniels has a slight edge just because I think voters are going to want to give Godless something, just kind of how, like, when People versus O.J. Simpson was on the board, they wanted to give at least one other show something, which is how Night Manager managed to overcome the three not directing nods for O.J. Simpson to win there, even though it won nothing else except for like its music, but no other big categories.
and I like how The Night Of managed to win a category where Big Little Lies wasn't nominated.
Yeah. So I just feel like, I mean, again, we could see Godless win and maybe supporting actress, but I'm not predicting Merritt Weaver there. But we'll get to that in a minute.
Well, spoiler alert, I am.
All right. Well, I will. So I just think that I think I suspect it's a close race in the vote between Daniels and Dixon, but I just think Jeff Daniels just has the slight edge because of his career as a whole, his past Emmy win for The Newsroom, and just his versatility as an actor in general, because he can go from comedy to drama pretty easily, and he can go from hero to villain pretty easily. I mean, he's a solid he's a solid, reliable actor, whatever you get him in. But I do have for the rest of my rankings, despite Finn Whitrock. Oh, well, actually, hold on. I'll have to actually switch. I may actually move Finn Whitrock to third place because I actually had put Edgar Ramirez in third place because he's actually is playing the titular Versace. But I think I'll switch him and Finn Whitrock from third and fourth, because I think some voters could feel Finn Whitrock is overdue from not winning for American Horror Story Freak Show in 2015. And I know a lot of Gold Derby users were mad at his loss, even though I did correctly predict Bill Murray to win for Olive Kitteridge. And I personally think Murray was the deserving winner there. Um, but yeah, so I think Finn Whitrock's, I'll, I'll put him in third and Edgar Ramirez in fourth. And then the rest of my rankings, I have Michael Stuhlbarg in fifth because he had maybe some voters may want to reward him from not, especially after he was snubbed at the Oscars for Call Me by Your Name.
And he was in 3 Best Picture nominees this past year.
Mm-hmm. And then I have Ricky Martin in sixth just because he's riding the Versace wave, even though I didn't expect him to get a nomination at all.
Oh, I think I predicted him to get in.
I don't remember you.
Are you still?
And then I have John Leguizamo in seventh because literally no one saw him getting a nomination here at all. I
Yeah.
forgot he was even in this. I knew Michael Shannon and Taylor Kitsch were in it, but I didn't know John Leguizamo was in it too because, well, I'd never watched it, but I didn't remember seeing his name in the Emmy ballot. But there are so many names you can't possibly remember them all.
Oh, yes. And in fact, to your point about, yeah, well, yes, I do understand the debate on should these live musicals really be competing in TV, movie, limited series categories. I mean, granted, Amanda Spears has said on multiple Slugfest that she thinks if Jesus Christ Superstar Live in Concert was submitted as a TV movie, it would probably win there. But again, the whole question, well, then again, don't you think if those backlash, would it even be nominated in these categories?
Wait, say the question again.
Well, if there really was the whole debate, well, this big of a debate on this backlash on if these live musicals should be competing in the TV, movie, limited series categories like acting or directing, don't you think they wouldn't even be nominated?
I mean, I guess, but like, I mean, it just if they hadn't eliminated the variety performance category, we probably wouldn't have such like the weird thing of they get nominated here and then they get nominated in there for various categories. It's a weird thing, you know.
Well, yeah, which is why how we see the SNL cast members nominated in comedy supporting acting races and sometimes win.
I'm sure if the variety performance category still existed, Brandon Victor Dixon would easily win there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we'll talk about in the directing about Jesus Christ Superstar being there instead of in the variety directing. But
yeah, so I guess now to Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Limited Series TV Movie. The nominees are Sarah Bareilles, Jesus Christ Superstar, live in concert; Penelope Cruz, The Assassination of Gianni Versace, American Crime Story; Judith Light, The Assassination of Gianni Versace, American Crime Story; Adina Porter, American Horror Story Cult; Merritt Wever, Godless; and Letitia Wright, Black Mirror, Black Museum.
all right, so I was torn between my top two here because I think the race is going to be a tight one between the two of them, and whoever wins will probably win and end up by a small margin over the other. But after much thinking, I put Penelope Cruz in first place for the assassination of Gianni Versace because but I do have Judith Light in second place because well, with Penelope Cruz, she has more episodes. She's an Oscar winner, big movie star, and you know that certainly helped Nicole Kidman with Big Little Lies last year. Plus,
And
she's playing a real person, so that's another factor because
well, yeah, and Cruz, I thought, really gave such incredible performance as Gianni Versace's long-suffering sister Donatella.
hmm yep, and you know, and thanks to her, her brother's fashion empire is still standing and very powerful to this day. So she still runs her brother's empire, and yeah, and you know, she got a lot of acclaim for the role, and you know, that's for me. And this is a Ryan Murphy production, of course, so that also helps with limited series. It looks like. But I do think Judith Light has a strong chance to pull an upset win because even though her role was brief, she received universal praise for her performance, and you know, she certainly brought a lot of gravitas because she was playing the widow of one of Andrew Cunanan's victims. So
Yeah,
we get to see survivor's grief from her of having Andrew Cunanan affect her life forever.
well, yeah, and she was absolutely standouts on the 2 episodes she appeared in.
Plus, I mean, maybe some Emmy voters, if they're, you know, if they feel sorry for her that Transparent is ending after its next season because of Jeffrey Tambor getting fired, maybe they'll, and the chance of her winning for that show now are pretty much non-existent. So maybe they feel she can win here. I mean, you know, she technically does have two daytime Emmys for the soap opera One Life to Live, but you
Yeah,
know,
but she's never won primetime.
right, and maybe this would be a nice way for her to get her first primetime Emmy. So yeah, but then I do have Merritt Wever in third place because you know, I know, of course, her being a standout on Godless, but
And
and
she
then I
could
do.
benefit if Cruz and Lights cancel each other out.
hmm And then I have Sarah Bareilles in fourth just because of the Jesus Christ Superstar love, and you know, I didn't expect her to get a nomination at all,
Neither did I.
but I do know that many people praised her rendition of Mary Magdalene's song "I Don't Know How to Love Him," so you know, maybe that can give her the edge here. And
Uh,
then,
and not to mention that she's also had quite a year. As in fact, it was literally probably. I remember reading that the day after the telecast, she got the call to come host or at least co-host this year's Tonys. So of course that could put her on the ballot with Josh Groban for Variety Special Live next year. But of course, back to this year, yeah, I could see that being a good case for her. But then again, you have Letitia Wright, who I have in fourth place. And in fact, I believe Cordell Martin is actually predicting her because, as I told you earlier, she's, well, he often looks for cultural significance in his predictions. And, Letitia Wright's also, had a big hit movie earlier this year, Black Panther.
mhm. Well, that it's partly because of that I put her in fifth place because I mean I remember she was like 100 to 1 in the nominations when it was before that they came out. So like literally no one predicted she'd be actually nominated for this. But
Yeah,
I mean, obviously it goes to show just how much Emmy voters love Black Mirror as a whole instead of just like the one episode of USS Callister.
yeah.
So, but the fact that she's the only nomination for the Black Museum episode could possibly hurt her. And while she certainly has gotten her fair share of praise for her performance as Shuri in both Black Panther and Avengers Infinity War, I do think most of the buzz around that movie, I mean, while she certainly got a fair share of it, most of the buzz, I think, centered primarily around Chadwick Boseman, Michael B. Jordan, and out of the women, the two women that seemed to get the most buzz were Lupita Nyong'o and Denai Guerrera.
Well, yes, and I guess I should.
And many Emmy voters, especially older voters, they might not even know, like they may look at her name and they'd be wondering who the heck is she? I've never even heard of her. So I think, to a certain degree, name recognition still helps here.
Well, yes, and in fact, and though I, though, yeah, though, well, and I'll say, in fact, I should point out that, of course, Borsa Bareilles is, often at these award shows, she's always a bridesmaid and never the bride. She's been Grammy nominated 6 times and still hasn't won. She received a Tony nomination for writing the score to Waitress, but of course, she had to, of course, kindly be a bridesmaid to Lin-Manuel Miranda as he was winning everything for Hamilton. And here she is receiving her first Emmy nomination, and it'd be a shocker if she wins, but, hey, at least she should be proud of getting a nomination for acting for once. And
right. I mean, I think for her, the nomination is the reward itself. Kind of also same with Adina Porter, who I have in last place, because she's been a standout on American Horror Story, but just given how far it's fallen in recent years, I didn't expect her to get a nomination. Same with Sarah Paulson. I just kind of assumed that American Horror Story's days of getting acting nominations were over.
well, yeah, I have Dina Porter in last place as well, though. Yeah, well, yeah. In fact, going from bottom to top, Adina Porter in sixth, Sarah Bareilles in fifth, Letitia Wright in fourth, Penelope Cruz in third, Judith Light in second, and Merritt Weaver in first. I mean, in fact, I did have a Judith Light winning for a while, but I settled on Merritt Weaver again, kind of the vote splitting factor, as well as the fact that we've talked about earlier how she was a surprise winner for Nurse Jackie despite being in last place in the odds, and she won on the comedy side, and she gets to display a more dramatic turn on the Netflix miniseries Godless.
But it should also be noted that when she won for Nurse Jackie, the Emmys were still under the blue ribbon panel system where only a small amount of voters were watching the individual tapes, and therefore...
Well, yes. Plus, I was under the old rank system where she apparently, well, she probably wouldn't have won if it was under the plurality vote.
Yeah. So given that we have a plurality vote now, we don't know how many voters are going to go, for her this time, because we've seen people who've maybe won under the old system and win under the new system again, but we don't know how well they're going to respond to her under the new system, because with the new system you can win with only like 10% of the vote if it's like a very close race between everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I'm going with Penelope Cruz for now for all the reasons I stated before, but yeah, I think this is a pretty tight open race, I guess you can say. I think it's ultimately either Cruz, Light, or Weaver, and whoever wins probably wins with a very slim margin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so now the nominees for Outstanding Directing for a Limited Series, Movie, or Dramatic Special, the nominees are...
All right. So we have a mix here of individual episodes versus entire series or movies.
Or dramatic specials in the case of Jesus Christ Superstar.
Mm-hmm. So the nominees are The Assassination of Gianni Versace, American Crime Story, for the episode The Man Who Would Be Vogue, Godless for the whole series, Jesus Christ Superstar Live in Concert, The Looming Tower for the episode 9/11, Paterno, which is a movie, Patrick Melrose for the entire series, and Twin Peaks for the entire series.
Well, yeah, because Godless, Patrick Melrose, and Twin Peaks were miniseries that had the same director for all their installments. Like last year's winner, Big Little Lies, which Jean-Marc Vallée directed every single episode.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, this will be an interesting race. This is where I have my second super bet.
Oh,
I do think I am going to predict assassination of Gianni Versace here because of, it's the front runner for limited series, and if Darren Criss is probably going to win actor, I think Ryan Murphy could finally win another directing award here. I think
and
some
then
voters, some
yeah,
voters, some voters may feel he's overdue for a directing win because he hasn't won directing since Glee.
yeah, yeah.
He didn't win for The Normal Heart, and
Mhm.
he had the unfortunate situation of where he and two other not people were nominated for directing People versus O.J. Simpson, but the night manager managed to pull through and beat all three of them there. But since I guess they decided, well, this time we can't overstuff the ballot with ourselves, so therefore he's the only nominee in the category.
And so he's not risk of vote splitting.
Right, but and this is a riskier bet, super bet for me because while I think he's the front runner, I do think there are two possible upsets. One I think is Godless because it's one of the most nominated out of all the limited series behind Gianni Versace, but I
And
do
it
think
is the most cinematic, and again, same director every episode.
plus Scott Frank is coming off his surprise Best Adapted Screenplay Oscar nomination for Logan, so there's
That's
that.
right. Hmm.
And Logan too kind of took a Western vibe, so if any Emmy voters love Logan and they realize he was part of the writing team for that, I could see that helping him here. And then, of course, even though it underperformed in the main categories, it still got a lot of technical nominations, which could possibly help David Lynch for Twin Peaks. And so I have him in third.
Oh,
And given that David Lynch has kind of said I think he said a while ago he's not making any more movies. He never said if he's not making any more TV shows, but for now, I'm assuming this is his last project. So if he truly is indeed retiring, he could possibly get a win here. But then again, Twin Peaks, while it did win a few Emmys in its original run, it's one of those things where if you love David Lynch, then you'd probably love this, and if you hate David Lynch, then you probably hate this. So it's more or less whether or not you personally love or hate David Lynch's work as a whole that affects whether or not you vote for Twin Peaks, probably.
well, yeah. Plus, I don't believe Twin Peaks won anything on the Creative Arts Awards last weekend.
No, I don't think it did. But I do think, but I could see, just, but Twin Peaks has always been hailed as kind of like a director's achievement. You watch it not necessarily for the writing or acting, but mainly for the directing because of you have no idea what he's going to do. And so, yeah, if, I think for those reasons he could possibly win here. And I then have Jesus Christ Superstar in fourth place because of the acclaim, but I could see some voters feeling that it being here instead of variety special directing counts as category fraud. So they may feel, well, wrong category. I'm not voting for it.
Well, I will admit, I actually have Jesus Christ Superstar winning.
Mm. I mean, it's certainly possible, but again, I could feel. I think with Ryan Murphy, it's kind of hard not it's kind of hard to overlook him, because he's so visible all the time with his TV work.
Well, yes, I do have him in second place, though.
Hmm. And I just think if Versace could win like the casting award at the Creative Arts and win a couple craft awards, I don't see how it doesn't win directing here.
Hmm.
But then I have Patrick Melrose in fifth place because it's the only one out of all of the rest of the contenders to get nominated for like writing, acting, directing, and everything else. So, but then I do have The Looming Tower in sixth place because it does have some acting nominations. And then Paterno in last place because its only other nomination was for TV movie, which it lost at the Creative Arts Awards.
Well, I actually have Paterno ranked in fifth place because well, yes, it underperformed. It couldn't get Al Pacino into lead actor, but I guess it's mainly because well, again, these directing categories are voted on by the director's branch, and the director of Paterno is Barry Levinson. They're a well-respected filmmaker who's made films like The Natural, Rain Man, Bugsy.
Hmm. But I do think just Paterno, its critical response was like okay, but not like overwhelmingly positive.
Well, that's true.
So that I think will hurt it. I mean, maybe we'll see Al Pacino bounce back at the Golden Globes and SAG Awards because they kind of have them. They kind of love the movie star vibe there,
Hmm.
especially at the Golden Globes. I can definitely see him getting nominated there, but we'll see.
Hmm. Yeah. As for my rankings, yeah, I have a Jesus Christ Superstar winning. I mean, well, yes, it probably could have been in contention for variety directing like Reese Live, which won 2 years ago. I mean, again, is the apple in a bag of oranges, or vice versa? I mean, I guess even though, well, yes, there may still be that whole factor of, well, should it really be in this category? I mean, I could still see people being impressed by how they're able to achieve this whole thing live in one night. But yeah, second place, Gianni Versace. Third, Godless. Fourth, Twin Peaks. Fifth, Paterno. Sixth, Patrick Melrose. And seventh, Fleming Tower. Though I could see myself moving Patrick Melrose up to fifth.
Mm-hmm. All right, so now on to writing.
Okay, the nominees there are American Vandal for the episode Cleanup, The Assassination of Gianni Versace, American Crime Story for the episode House by the Lake, Black Mirror, USS Callister, Godless, Patrick Melrose, and Twin Peaks. So I actually have Gianni Versace winning here. I did previously had Black USS Callister winning, given that Black Mirror did prevail here last year, but I'm settled on Gianni Versace because okay, as we talked about before, writing is more of the better indicator of what will win the top series award than directing. And, well, not to mention that the writer on this episode is Tom Rob Smith, who I believe is the one who I guess is the brain, the head, I believe, head writer of this entire installment of American Crime Story.
And he also wrote the very popular book Child 44, which was then turned into a movie with Tom Hardy. And I have read that book as well as its two sequels. They're very good books. The
And I
movie,
believe Gary Oldman was also in that movie as well, and one of many collaborations Tom Hardy and Oldman did together.
Mhm. In the movie, while it got bad reviews from critics, I didn't completely hate it, but it could have been better. One thing the movie did was they didn't even use the shocking twist that's in the book. But I can't obviously can't talk about that because that would be spoilers. But let's
Plus,
just say,
we're already off topic.
yeah. But I'm just saying, Tom Rob Smith. That's how I recognize him for. I recognize him from his books. Um, What are the rest of your rankings?
Well, second place, I have Godless because, well, again, Scott Frank wrote every episode, and it's not an adaptation of anything. He literally dreamt up this whole story. He literally dreams the whole thing up. So, especially for a Western, I mean, in third place, Black Mirror. Fourth, Patrick Melrose. Fifth, Twin Peaks. And sixth, American Vandal.
Hmm. All right, so I actually have Black Mirror winning this because it surprised it last year where we all thought Big Little Lies would be a lock to win there, but we thought Black Mirror would win TV movie, but nothing else. But it won that as well as the writing award, and it's the same writer nominated again, Charlie Brooker, or well, he's one of two this time. But if they could like Black Mirror enough for it to win TV movie, I could see it possibly winning the writing award again too. So, and given the fact that Black Mirror likes to push the boundary of what it depicts in terms of, it's a science fiction show, but it's not like, a Star Trek type of show where it only appeals to, like, say, a certain type of, quote unquote nerd per se. Like, it likes to push the boundaries of modern day issues, like, of whether it be LGBT issues or race issues or whatever. It likes to take a science fiction spin on that. And they certainly do that with USS Callister by making it like a Me Too meets Star Trek kind of thing.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
that,
that's a good case to be made for it.
um, so, but then I do have Assassination of Gianni Versace in second place because, it's considered the front runner for limited series. So, Therefore, I think it has this better chance of pulling an upset, but I do have Godless in third. And then I have Patrick Melrose in fourth, you know, because it has more nominations. And then Twin Peaks I have in fifth because, you know, it's never been really seen as a writer's showcase. It's been seen more as a director's and cinematographer's showcase. And then American Vandal in sixth, mainly because that's its only nomination. And I can see how some Emmy voters may find the whole concept of the show too juvenile for them. Because let's face it, without going into a lot of details about American Vandal, it pretty much sounds like the plot summary for a Seth Rogen movie.
Yeah.
And if Emmy voters like snob appeal, they'd be like, they look at American Vandal and be like, oh no, 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 not that.
Yeah.
Especially,
So,
you know, I can the only people I can really imagine voting for American Vandal are like actual 25-year-old stoners who are like, word, American Vandal is lit, man. It preaches to me. It speaks the truth about life. Because that's what I imagine Seth Rogen does on a daily basis, him and his fans. I mean, okay, like I don't hate Seth Rogen. I've loved his movies, but I'll be honest, if I were asked if I could spend time with Seth Rogen, I would say no, because I am not a pothead. I hate the idea of being a pothead. I do not like stoner culture at all. If that makes me a snob, so be it, but I hate people who are like, word, man, I just sit here and act like an idiot all day.
Okay. And, well, yes, in fact, I should explain to whoever's watching this right now, this is kind of what's fun about, you know, about disagreeing with your friends on certain races, is that you get to see who ends up doing better or worse, or if you both end up stumbling, if something else entirely wins that wasn't predicted by any one of you. So I guess, but in any case, this just about ends our predictions for the limited series TV movie races. We'll be back soon with our predictions for the reality variety categories.